If you've noticed that your chainsaw just isn't cutting like it used to, or is pulling to one side when you're cutting, then the blade probably needs a sharpen. You can do it yourself, but there are a few basics you need to know. Now, the first thing you want to do before you kick off is to make sure that you have the right file for your particular chainsaw. If you're unsure of what size file to use, just take your chainsaw down to Mitre 10 and the good folks there will help you out. Now, first thing we want to do is secure our blade into our bench vise. This is the ideal way of sharpening a chainsaw. This is going to hold it really nice and strong for us while we're moving that blade around. Now, don't over tighten it. Just nice and snug in there. Now, you are going to need a pair of gloves and some safety goggles when you do this. You want to just make sure that the blade is sitting in there quite nice and tight. Still be able to move it around though. That's sitting in there pretty good. Now, the teeth on a chainsaw blade alternate from left to right. So we've got our teeth that are facing me and then the teeth that are facing on the other side, from left to right to left to right. Before you start sharpening, you just want to make sure that you start off with the teeth that are facing you, and you only want to file out. Now, just to help myself out, I'm just going to mark that first tooth before I start sharpening it. That way, when I get all the way around, I know exactly when to stop. Now, I've got the correct size file for my chainsaw and I've got that sitting in a guide. So I'm just going to drop that carefully into my tooth. I'm just going to follow the actual angle of the tooth. Now, that indicating by the marks on my guide says that that's 30 degrees. So I'm just going to make sure I file all those teeth at 30 degrees. Now, there's a couple of different reasons that you should be sharpening your chainsaw, whether the blade is actually pretty blunt or if it's just a maintenance sharpen. Now, maintenance sharpen is about 2 to 3 strokes of your file after every tank of gas. Now, if it is pretty blunt, you could go up to about 5 or 6 times, but the main thing is that you give each tooth exactly the same amount of strokes. So when you're using your file, you just want to make sure that the file is actually 90 degrees to your chainsaw bar, and also you're sitting nice and level on the top. And just make sure that you're only always pushing the file forward. You don't ever want to drag that back. So we'll just count. Now that's 3. And then all I'm going to do is rotate the blade around to face my next tooth. Now, you just want to make sure that you are only doing the teeth that are actually facing you. Rightio, we're back to the beginning. So you just want to do exactly the same for the other side. Now, there's 2 parts to the tooth. There's the actual cutting edge, and then there's the front leading edge, which is also known as the raker. We want to make sure that the raker is not sticking above the tooth. Now, the reason why that could happen is from the tooth might have been sharpened too many times. So we want to just put our depth gauge sitting nice and gently on our teeth. Using our flat file, let's just file that off nice and flat. Cool, now that's looking pretty sharp. Now, if you have filed your front raker a few times, you might want to just take your flat file again and make sure that that front raker is nice and round like it was when you first bought it. Now, you want to look after your file, so if you don't have a nice little case like this to keep them in, what you can actually do, slip a drinking straw over top of your file. Just kind of keep it nice and safe. And that's how it's done. Now your chainsaw will cut like it's meant to. Plus, it'll be a whole lot safer to use.